Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today we have a special guest, Andreas Antonopoulos. He's an author, coder, and educator. And the topic is the purpose of cryptocurrency. Hello, Andreas.
Hello, Michelle.
Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive in. What is your story?
My story is I'm a computer scientist. I'm a computer geek. Started programming when I was 10 years old, fell in love with computers, spent my entire life working with technology. And I specialized in my academic training in distributed systems and information security, and then built a career in information security around distributed systems. I was having a lot of fun. And then in 2012, I read the Bitcoin white paper that was linked in an article, and it completely derailed my life. I had been interested in the whole cypherpunk space, in the idea of using cryptography to promote social goals and to organize governance of societies in ways that were more equitable, that empowered people, that provided people with privacy, and that reduced the impact of authoritarian systems. And when I read Bitcoin and grasped that this was so much bigger than just, an internet payment system, it just blew my mind. It aligned with many of my interests and pretty much derailed my my life quite thoroughly. I worked full-time in the space, wrote my first book in 2014. I'm now writing my seventh, and I've been going around the world teaching people about this technology and trying to help them understand why it is so important.
Why is it so important?
Because for the past couple of centuries, we have an economic system and a monetary system that is based on antiquated 19th and 20th century institutions, hierarchical institutions. Our entire banking and finance system, the system of currency that is country specific and constrained by borders, all of these things represent old thinking. And we now live in an relatively open global environment in which borders are less meaningful than ever before, where the internet allows people to interact with others on a global scale. And yet our money and the way it's managed are still operating on these 19th century institutional models. So the reason cryptocurrency is important is because it turns money into a pure internet system, a language of data that is, by the nature of the internet, instantaneously, completely global, borderless, transnational, but also private, individualized, and protected against surveillance, censorship, autocratic measures, confiscation, interference, very much like communications is. The internet gave us the ability to communicate without barriers all across the world, an ability that dictators everywhere find extremely troubling, and that has empowered billions of people to overcome limitations on expression and communication. Cryptocurrencies do that for money. And because money is a cultural artifact, a means of communicating value, its natural place and its strongest expression is when you turn it into a pure communication mechanism.
We have an entire structure surrounding money.
Mm-hmm.
It is controlled. How do you think cryptocurrency can change that? And can it change that?
Well, ultimately, the cryptocurrency space is characterized by systems that are open, public, collaborative, even participatory in nature, meaning that you have certain rules that are encoded in software, and those rules are enforced by everybody who's participating in the system. And so if you choose to participate in a cryptocurrency system, by that choice, you choose to participate based on a set of rules, and no one can basically change those rules at a whim and put you at a disadvantage. It creates the ultimate level playing field. And because these systems are inherently open, they don't care about who you are, where you are. They simply offer a service over the internet. And there's no company, there's no organization, there's no one behind these things that controls them. They become a very, very level playing field. So in the world of finance, the traditional world of finance, we have these hierarchies, and these hierarchies concentrate power. So the ability to, let me rephrase that, the closer you are to the top of the pyramid, the more wealth, power, and influence you can accumulate. So these hierarchical systems are fundamentally unfair, but they're also extremely dangerous because they concentrate power. They're toxic to democratic institutions. And we see that in countries where there's massive income inequality, there's also massive power inequality. And that translates into massive political inequality, which translates into authoritarianism. I see these systems as flattening access, flattening control, flattening power, and therefore giving people opportunity and power that they haven't had before. So that's really why this is interesting to me. On a very practical basis, you can see this in a way that is very shallow. It was like, okay, I make a payment over the internet. Who cares? I could do that with I can do that with PayPal, right? I could do that with my Chase bank account. Sure, that's true. You can. I can. But what about the 6 billion people who can't? You know, PayPal goes to 19 countries. There are 194 countries in the world. The vast majority of the people on this planet live in an environment where they can't use a foreign currency. They can't transfer money across borders. They can't invest outside of a very limited set of investments, if at all. They can't trade their labor, their services, their ideas for money with people in other countries. They're basically excluded from the international system. They're excluded from the international economy. And there's a lot of geopolitics that goes into that, but the bottom line is that there are effectively two economies. There's the economy of the privileged who have the kinds of capabilities that you and I have through our banking systems, through our access to technology, and then there's everybody else. And what cryptocurrency does is it offers the same opportunity and the same access to everyone. And I think that's a very powerful idea. I think people should be in charge of their own money. I think people should be able to transact with anybody in the world they want, anytime they want, without any interference from anyone else, because no one has the moral authority to prevent people from pursuing their family's economic health and wealth.
How far have we gone from that purpose?
You know, it's still very early stages. You know, this is an early stage experimental technology. I can tell you that in some places in the world, it's already making a huge difference to people who are otherwise facing enormous crises. With early stage technologies like this, there is a very steep learning curve. You need to understand the technology, you need to understand how to apply it. It requires some basic internet infrastructure and things like that. And so why bother? And the reason you bother is because it's life or death. And so you see applications of this technology in places where people have no other choices or better choices. And at that point, learning about this technology becomes a survival skill. For example, we're seeing this technology being used in Venezuela to not only help people survive a horrific economic crisis of hyperinflation and authoritarianism, but also to escape, to exit. And that's something you can't do with traditional mechanisms. The bottom line is this: cryptocurrency is uncensorable. Cryptocurrency is unstoppable. Cryptocurrency can be used even in environments where there's very, very, very strong controls over every other financial mechanism. And that means that in an environment like Venezuela, there is no other way to send money into the country or to work for a company outside the country in order to earn a living, or to transact in the black market, which is a survival necessity, unless you have access to physical dollars or cryptocurrency. And so the ability of this technology to easily cross borders, to resist surveillance and control, and to be available to anyone who has some very basic technology is life-changing in those environments. We're seeing the same thing with refugees from countries that need to travel across borders. And the ability to take money as a pure form of data means that you can memorize 12 words and take all of your cryptocurrency with you in your head, where it cannot be stolen, where it cannot be erased, where it cannot be extracted. And so, you know, the clothes on your back and the 12 words in your head and start a new life somewhere else, that is impossible to do with any traditional technology. So what these things do is they demonstrate the cruelty, indignity, and inhumanity of centrally controlled financial systems that in order to satisfy a kind of bourgeois attitude towards fake safety that is provided by handing over control to some esteemed authority, have condemned billions of people on this planet to be in poverty and isolation. And I think that's a moral wrong, and I think it's a moral imperative to change that.
Let's talk about a fake safety. Do you feel that I'm here, I live in the US, and there is currently a virus going on, I cannot go outside, really, I need to wear a mask. Do you think that is fake safety? I mean, even if the world's perfect today and I can go outside, our healthcare system is awesome, where I don't need to worry about a risk. Do you feel that even with that ideal world that I am safe and I can be private as a citizen and not be surveyed and be able to transact with different people around the world? I just wanted to see how safe I am and
Well,
why we need cryptocurrency. Like, do I have enough?
yeah. Well, so to me, security is largely an illusion, and it's an illusion that is used to extract control and reduce people's freedom. And I don't mean that in a radical way. I just mean that there's always this political game going on between, sacrifice a bit more of your freedom in order to achieve a measure of safety. There's a huge difference between putting on a mask that effectively costs you nothing to do and protects others around you, or maybe it doesn't, but if it doesn't, all you've really suffered is a minor inconvenience, versus being prohibited from sending money to your family back home, or having to justify why you have money in your bank account, or having a political donation you make in a country where the opposition is banned and there's no right to political opposition, become a death sentence because it's easily traced through a banking system that is designed for surveillance. There's a vast difference in what we're talking about here. This is not just a matter of minor inconvenience or the illusion of safety. The bottom line is that handing over power to banks and large corporations, etc., and the idea that they're going to protect you from fraud, or they're going to prevent crime from happening by stopping criminals from using money, what that does ultimately is, obviously, it doesn't stop criminals from using money. What it does, however, is it gives enormous power to these financial institutions, and they use that power in ways that are antithetical to the health of democracy. And so, the same banks that say we need to monitor every transaction to make sure there's no fraud are the same banks that elevated Bernie Madoff to the head of the regulatory agency. They're the same banks that commit money laundering on a multi-billion-dollar level, hundreds of billions of dollars every year, and get no repercussions. These fake safeties that they create are, it's nice to feel safe, but at what cost? And you've got to understand the cost of these things. Cost of these things is that billions of people around the world are permanently excluded from the global financial system. And that actually makes us less safe. If you condemn people to poverty and despair is the only thing they have, that is not safe. So from my perspective, I look at this technology both as inevitable, meaning that money is now a global open system of communication on the internet, whether we like it or not, but also as something that improves on our current system, whereby the proximity to control and power over money enriches a few and also makes them dangerous in terms of their concentration of power. And that comes at the expense of condemning billions of people to poverty.
What must be changed right now for the purpose of cryptocurrency to happen?
Nothing. We just have to be patient. It already happened. This is not something that will happen in the future. It already happened. It happened on January 3rd, 2009 with the invention of Satoshi Nakamoto. That's it. It's out of the bag. With resources that are available on the internet, hell, with my book, a 12-year-old with programming experience and a bit of, talent can recreate the entire basis of any cryptocurrency in a couple of weeks of programming. This is no longer a question of if, it's already happened. And you can't undo that. This is a fundamental invention that changes a fundamental technology in society, and it's already happened. So now the only question is, how many people can gain access to this? How quickly, efficiently, securely, comfortably can people gain access to it? And how much pushback is there going to be from industries that have a lot to lose when they're disintermediated, when their business model is made obsolete? The bottom line in this entire thing is that the function of banking in almost every way has now been swallowed by software. It's not widespread yet, but it has already happened. So when we talk about this, it's definitely a Silicon Valley mantra, but it's a more broader recognition of reality, is that software is swallowing industries. The internet has already fundamentally disrupted and swallowed entire industries that deal in information. Entertainment, news, social interactions, TV, media, music, all of those industries have been fundamentally disrupted. Many of these industries were hundreds of years old, sometimes thousands of years old, and they were changed forever. And none of their tradition and quality and grandeur was enough to stop the fact that software could do it faster, cheaper, easier, and more equitably with greater access for everybody. It's naive to think that finance is immune to this, that money is somehow immune, that it has some kind of magical quality that requires a government, that requires a centralized organization. For thousands of years, we had private monies. We had decentralized, untraceable, anonymous cash payments in the form of precious metal coins. And for a very brief interlude of maybe a couple hundred years, but mostly just the last 40 years, we've had our current financial system. So anybody who looks at the current financial system and says this is forever has been a poor study of history and is very naive. The internet is coming for banking. I can, with a software application installed on a smartphone, access 80% of the capabilities, not of a bank account, of a bank. I have a bank in my back pocket, not a bank account. I have the ability to act as a banker on a global scale with an application on my smartphone that didn't even require me to fill in a registration form. That power is awesome, and it is as awesome as the ability to have a printing press and become a publisher, to have a sound studio, as we are doing now, and become a radio station. And it's naive to think that this won't happen with money. There's nothing special about money that prevents it from being abstracted and disintermediated by a communication infrastructure like the internet.
And how does alternative coins play a role in cryptocurrency? I mean, now we have Ether and Bitcoin pretty much dominating. And then there's a flush of other coins. How are they going to interplay, I guess, in the cryptocurrency world?
So in the past, we had this conception of national money, and that meant a monopoly system of money where there could be only 190 or so forms of money that was strictly regulated and issued by a government. What Bitcoin did is it opened the door to anybody issuing currency. And here's the thing: once you understand it from an anthropological and sociological level, you suddenly realize that money issuance is something that is a human expression, and that has happened for thousands of years without any centralized government institution. When you have kids swapping Pokemon cards for building blocks and rubber band wristbands at school, what they're doing is they're exchanging value using tokens in order to express loyalty, affiliation, friendship, and other forms of social expression with each other. So there's no difference between that as money and the US dollar. The differences are purely symbolic. The idea of anybody being able to issue globally recognizable, unforgeable, scalable currency that operates anywhere on the internet without any barriers to entry, that's happened. And so then the question is, what do people do with that? Do they make one token? Do they make 1,000 tokens? Do they make 10,000 tokens? How many monies can we have? And the answer to that question is really as simple as the answer to the question, how many radio stations can we have? How many bloggers can we have? How many music artists can we have? How many journalists can we have? And the modern answer to all of those questions in the era of the internet is as many as there are people on the planet, and then some, because machines will do it too. So are there ever enough bloggers, enough radio stations, enough music artists, enough of all of these other forms of expression? There will be tens of thousands of forms of money, and the vast majority of them will have very little or zero value. They'll have no influence beyond a very narrow sphere. When 5-year-old Tommy makes Tommy coin in his primary school, you may say Tommy coin has no value, but to Tommy's 3 friends, Tommy coin has value. And so from that perspective, we're going to see the entire spectrum. What this is about opening the range of expression from the local, minuscule, and seemingly unimportant all the way to the global, transnational forms of money. That entire scale is now open. And we will see all elements in that entire scale be occupied by various forms of token that have different meaning depending on who's using them.
If people have questions, where do they go to learn more?
So all of my books are actually available easily. Most of my work is available under Creative Commons and open source licenses. I have a YouTube channel with more than 500 videos, some of them kind of high-level philosophical talks about the nature of money and the social implications of this technology, and some more technical. Some Q&A videos, more than 400 Q&A videos that answer specific questions. So there's actually a wealth of information out there. It's important to be careful about how much you engage with this space. As an educational tool, there's a lot of useful stuff out there. If you are interested in this space and start looking at it from the perspective of investment, however, you have to be extremely careful, because many people get into trouble when their investment appetite exceeds their technical knowledge. So I would look at this primarily as a space where you can build skill and learn things that will be useful more broadly in your life than just this narrow space, and that will always be positive. And at least at first, stay away from the investment side of this.
And what is that one piece of advice that you absolutely love to provide to the community?
Well, I'll give you 2. The first one is, when you're looking at cryptocurrency, many people think about how they're going to buy it, which is not something we do with any other currencies. I don't buy dollars, I earn them. And that is an important shift in perspective, because I also don't buy cryptocurrency, I earn it. What I'm doing is I'm engaging in the largest open market for cryptocurrency that exists, which is the labor market. I give products and services and earn money in this currency, just like I do in US dollars, euro, yen, British pound sterling. So shift your perspective in looking at this as a stock, a bond, an investment, and think of it as real currency that you can earn, no matter what skill you have. The other part of this is to understand a fundamental issue of control. Cryptocurrency is about decentralizing power. That means that control over your own cryptocurrency is achieved with control over your own cryptographic keys. And to make that easily understood, I use a slogan that is, not your keys, not your coins. If you don't have control over the cryptographic keys, they're not actually your crypto coins. They're not your cryptocurrency. You've given them to a third party, a bank of some sort, a custodian, a third-party service, and they may not give it back to you. They may have it stolen from them, whatever. That's not how we work in the cryptocurrency space. The essence of this is decentralizing control. And that means you have to take control over your cryptocurrency. And that means you have to take control over the keys, the control of cryptocurrency.
So don't give your keys to anyone, and you should be self-empowered to manage your money.
Yeah, basically that's it. With great power comes great responsibility. It's not easy. People can get into situations where they make mistakes and lose money, which is why you should never let your investment appetite exceed your technical knowledge. But, just like in the early days, it wasn't easy to set up a website. It wasn't easy to set up an email address and use it correctly. It wasn't easy to go out on the internet and find information or work on the internet. It's not easy to do this. But for those who make the effort and learn the skills, the benefits are much broader than the narrow skill that you might learn.
And is there anything else you want to add to the purpose of cryptocurrency that I have not asked you?
It's okay if this isn't important or relevant in your life right now. In fact, if you don't need a new form of money, a new form of currency, a new financial system, count yourself really lucky. That's an element of extreme privilege, to live in a place where your government isn't trying to steal from you, your bankers are not 100% organized criminals, where your ability to pay your bills, to earn and to control your own financial destiny is not something that you ever think about. That's great, fantastic. Maybe you don't need cryptocurrency yet. Maybe there's not an application that makes it relevant to your life, and that's perfectly fine. It also means that you're part of maybe 5 to 10% of the human population that have those privileges. And part of what we're doing with this technology is trying to address the other 6 billion.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.